Welcome to this podcast. We sometimes have the opportunity of working with people and interviewing people who are provide innovations and are influential in our decision making because that person has done such a good job himself. Gennady Sirota is one of those people. He's the CEO of StellaLife. He had a high-tech background and after he's in his high-tech field, he had a passion. And he found that there was a way of fulfilling that passion by working with, at that time, a fledgling product, now is a very popular product, called StellaLife. And by fulfilling his passion and by taking his high-tech training as well as his business training and his business skills, he's been able to create not only a product that is good and that sells well, but has been able to benefit a lot of dental practices all over the country. Gennady and I met, years ago when StellaLife first came out, and a couple of periodontists that I know, one being Jason Stoner, had recommended this product to me, and so I got in touch with Gennady. Gennady sent me some StellaLife. We used it with our surgical patients, and 2 weeks later, one of my assistants came to me and says, "We've got to order more of this product. People are taking less pain medication." And that was the start of a very fulfilling relationship. Gennady and I have met many times since that time. He's become active in dentistry. He's the vice president of AOSH, of the American Association of Oral and Systemic Health. So he's going to tell us a little bit of his path, the people he's discovered, the people who have helped him, the organizations that might help you. And with that, I welcome Gennady Sirota. Gennady, good to have you with us.
It's such a pleasure to be here with you. I'm excited to share a little bit about my journey, and I'm very honored to be here with you, Lee. It's such a pleasure. I'll talk a little bit about today about Entrepreneurship 101. It's something that I've done for a number of peer programs around the country, and also at number of events nationwide. And what I talk about is the 5 essential elements for building successful business that is actually has proven throughout, no matter which business you're in, dentistry or outside of dentistry, it has always been the pathway. Before I get started, I just want to mention and show disclosure and disclaimer. I am part of StellaLife, so anything you hear about StellaLife, I am truly biased. And then anything you hear about AOSH, I'm a board member. I'm also very biased toward American Academy for Oral Systemic Health. Just a little bit about my background. I've been in high tech, as you mentioned, Lee, since the 80s, and that's actually not me with all that white hair all the way to the left, but those were the roaring 80s, and I had the opportunity to work for Motorola many years, and enjoyed bringing new technologies and being on the frontier of new innovations my entire career. And I was fortunate to join a startup called Starent Networks, and when there was just a few of us, and the company has grown to over 1,000 because we developed 3G mobile internet standards, which actually drove success of the introduction of iPhone that came 6 years later. And I would have been in high tech for the rest of my career unless I've realize what StellaLife products can do for a lot of folks, and specifically for autoimmune oncology and advanced healing to reduce the opioids epidemic. And oncology is personal for me, so it's something that I've lost loved ones to, and when you could do something to help folks get through the day, it becomes very important. So what will you discover today? I'll talk about the biggest decision of your life, how to discover and what drives happiness. How do I discover my why? How would you measure your life? secrets of success and 5 essential elements for building successful business. And we'll touch on vision, mission, values, and culture. And if we have the time, we can talk a little bit about 12 rules of success. And some folks may know what pastel is, some may not. So I'll hopefully have time to touch on that as well. So as far as happiness, maybe some of you have heard about this 80-year-old, 80-plus-year-old Harvard study on happiness. But basically, the summary of it is pretty straightforward. Those who have family, friends, and community around them, that's really the predictor of longevity. And while having good genes are very good, joy is better. So having the community and the system around you that allow you to fulfill your dreams and your passion is really will make all the difference in happiness and your longevity. I think many of you have heard about Simon Sinek. I think he's really good at picking out your why, really your purpose, your belief. Once you can identify that, and then you can take the actions of why you do what you do, and then you could focus on how, and then you could focus on what. If you have not read his books or have not seen them on LinkedIn and other or Facebook, I would suggest taking a look at it. He does really get into asking the right questions so you could figure out your why, what keeps you getting up in the morning and smile and be excited about the day. Finding that passion and that belief is essential. And if you have not seen his TED Talk, I think he's the 3rd most watched TED Talk of all time or something. I know he's definitely in the top 5. And you could just search for him on TED and you look for inspirational leadership. I think it's one of the better 15 minutes that you could spend in just listening to him and why certain companies succeed, why leadership is in certain way quite essential in building successful company, no matter what company it is. And then I always look at it and kind of break it into envision the future, follow your passion, and then inspire others to make it a reality. If you could do things like that, then I think you'll have a pretty successful business and the right team with you. I think many have heard about Dale Carnegie. So just in summary, and he has a number of books. I think the one that's really been a game changer for me early part of my career and kind of throughout my career is How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think there's so many insights that he provides, from being a good listener to always have a smile. And I think the one that's really most important is, become genuinely interested in other people. And I think that becomes a very essential aspect of how, you could drive success long term. And then, and also ability to view things from the other point of view. So not always look at your own point of view, but being able to transplant yourself into another person's position and actually feel it and understand why they say what they're saying and how they're seeing things. I truly believe that's one of the secrets of success, because if you could see not only your side, but the other side, that allow you to always come with a common ground and be able to move toward success. I think most have heard about 7 habits of highly effective people. I think in order to build a successful organization, one way or the other, each one of these 7 habits become really important. I think the one that I see a huge importance is the vision. Imagine the future, so you could actually understand where you're heading, because that becomes very important. And then always think of mutually beneficial relationships. So it's not just what you can gain, but what you can actually gain together. It's one plus one is three, rather than it's you and one just staying with what you can get. Because if it's not one plus one is three for both sides, it will never last. And then this was quite an interesting book. It's not as well known. Clayton Christensen is actually quite well known as a Harvard professor, and also he wrote a book, Innovator's Dilemma. It is like a Bible in a technology world. But this book, a lot of people have not heard. And basically, he makes this really interesting point that, you know, once you have a chance to read his book or read about this book or read about him, is that the most important motivator is really not money. It's the opportunity to learn, grow in responsibilities, and contribute to be recognized. Now, it sounds really like, well, that's great. It sounds like we know what that answer is, but building your life around this and your organization around this that allows other team members or your family members feel the same way makes a huge difference. And then think of a metric in which you will be judged and make a resolution to live life every day on that metric, that will allow you to judge your life as a success. So think of that ahead of time and then live the life that way. Then you know, going through the journey will allow you to continue to adjust, to know what that metric is, and then live your life toward it. A lot of businesses, and this is something that I find, whether that's in the high-tech, biotech, dentistry, or medicine, a lot of businesses search for their vision, their mission, their core values, and then figure out what their strategy execution is and how to measure it. I think if I would say one of the most essential things in building a successful business, I would say having the vision and the mission and the core values defined so clearly that not only you understand what it is, but your entire organization. And I'll give you an example. You know, vision without action is a dream. Action without vision is just passing time. And then vision with action can change the world. And what I've seen is there's a lot of action, but if there's no vision, you could end up meandering around and spending a lot of time in various ways to later find out that that's not where you wanted to take the organization or your team or your business. So I think core values, which is your principles and ideals, are also essential, because if you could define your core values, which are non-negotiable, and you could share it not only with your team, but even with your customers, it will not only help everyone understand who you are and what your business is about and what drives you, but it will allow you and your team to truly gel toward and focus marching toward the vision. And I think what's really exciting about it is that if you have the right core values defined, then you will always attract the right team members, and you will repel those that are not good for your business. So if you could do this very well, it will save you a lot of time and a lot of effort. And then from there, once you have the mission, you have the core values with the vision, then you could develop the strategy and execution plan. And then you can continue just measure the KPIs, key performance indicators. And then every year you define what they are and then measure it and then pivot to where you need to go. And this is an example of what we've done for StellaLife. And, you know, our vision is to save lives through intelligent healing, which is, vision is something that our goal is to get there in 20, 30 years. with the company. But our mission is something we do every day. Our goal is to improve lives by accelerating healing, relieving pain, reduce the need for opioids, and help the oncology patients. And to my surprise, I can tell you that we now have people who reached out to us and said that we've actually saved their lives. So even though I didn't think that that was going to happen years down the line, in helping some oncology patients stay off the feeding tube, and they credit us for truly saving their lives. So 5 essential elements to lead to business success. There are many different elements to build business, but these are the 5 essential elements that have been identified by Bill Gross, who actually successfully invested and incubated over 100+ companies. And he looked at his own companies, and he looked at another 100+ of outside companies, and he found that these are essential elements. Without these elements, if one of them is really not doing well, it will be difficult for business to survive long term. And these are the 5 essential elements: idea, team, timing, business model, and funding. And I think the question that always comes up is, while they're all essential, which ones are most important and which ones are least important? Because they're all essential, they're necessary. And so I will share with you what he found. He found that timing was the most essential and the most important. What he found is that even if you have the best team, the best idea, which could be product or a service, best business model that you could scale your organization and everyone's aligned and everyone's doing the right things, and you have plenty of funding, you have money in the bank to pay for everything that's happening in the business today and tomorrow. If your customers are not ready, you could do all these four very well. And if the technology is not ready, the customers are not ready, the timing is not there, then that will constitute no success for the business. So what I'll do is I'll touch on each one of them and how you can think about how you can improve in these areas, and what are some of the things to think about for your own business. So timing is everything, and I always believed that it has been and will be. And building a startup in the past and going through the entire process of going from just few of us to over 1,000, what I found is that it really comes down to your customers truly, you're solving the problem for them, and they truly come back to you, and you build long-term relationships. So there are different ways in how you can actually learn about what timing is correct, like tap into a wider variety of resources, get more insights, identify emerging trends in your industry, conduct market research surveys, or look at the market research that's out there. And then, of course, discover newly adapted practices. I think what we've seen in the past is that there are companies who could still make mistakes on the other four elements, but if the timing is right, they truly can succeed, because they'll have a little bit of a leeway to establish the right team, to build a model, to get enough funding. And one thing I wanted to share with you is Faith Popcorn. She's been a trend expert for many, many years. I think since I think it's 70s or 80s, and a lot of companies have actually hired her to help understand where the future is going. So if you can go to faithpopcorn.com and look at some future trends. It's actually mind-blowing. It's what she's predicting that's going to happen 10 years, 20 years, 25 years. So it's actually quite interesting. And yes, AI is a very big part of it. As Lee mentioned, I'm on the board of American Academy for Oral Systemic Health. So I truly believe that that uniting dentistry and medicine, where I believe future is going, and it's a huge opportunity to not only uniquely build your practice, but also when the conversation changes from a certain procedure to an overall conversation about the total health, working together with physicians, not only will have healthier patients living longer, but also you will get a lot more referrals from physicians. And that's actually the trend is happening, and that's actually starting to happen in various parts of the country. So I'd love for you to take a look at AASH.org and see if this is something for you. I think they're offering 2 months free. And if you're interested in signing up, just either reach out to me or just reach out to their executive director. This is an interesting, a very advanced organization. And I know that Lee, you've read the book, Bale-Donin Method. If you have not looked them up, I would suggest to do it. They're actually the ones that are talking about root causes of arterial inflammation, and they're linking a lot of oral pathogens to heart attack and strokes, and they're physicians, and they're the ones who also trailblazing in trying to bring medicine and dentistry together. So definitely look them up. And then if you're not doing salivary diagnostics, that's another trend that we're seeing, significant trend. There are various companies out there, from Direct Diagnostics and Oral DNA that and many others, Oral Vital, that sharing how they can help bring some really excellent test capabilities to your practice that ultimately will help your patients. And then back to the team, high performance leadership is really essential to building the right team, and the 3 pillars of trust: honesty, benevolence, and competence. And truly, trust is one of the essential elements. And then, of course, with competence, then the team gets on board, and having the right vision, having the right mission, and the values that are defined, that your team is aligned with, they're going to stay with you by far longer than any pay raise. I know pay is essential for a lot of folks to stay in their jobs. But what I found throughout my career is while pay is important, you need to be competitive. If they're aligned with your mission, vision, and the values, they'll have a much harder time leaving for an extra salary or bonus from somebody else, because if they're passionate and they truly feel that they're contributing, it would be, they would think 10 times before they would actually leave you. And then one thing that I would share with you is that venture capitalists, and I've dealt with a number of them throughout my career, is that what they do, they don't invest in ideas or products. They actually, the smart ones, invest in the A team, because they know in order for the company to survive and do extremely well, you need the A team, because they can even take B ideas and make it work. If it's vice versa, the B team could take an A product or a service and not make it work. So that is essential why building the right team is very critical and right at the top of the elements. So many of you have heard and read Maslow theory, his hierarchy of needs. I think the reason that I share this is that when you're hiring and building a team, it is important to understand not only where you are on this hierarchy of needs, but just as important as where the people that you're hiring, where are they? Because if they're in a certain category here, the conversation will be very difficult if you're trying to achieve a certain objectives and goals, and they need to be at the top of the hierarchy, but in reality they're still at lower levels of hierarchy. It will be very difficult for you to get them up and running and actually align with your values. So this becomes a very important aspect. Many of you have heard of disc profiling. Some folks believe in it, some do not. I've had good experience with it in general, and just understanding the type of people that you bring in on a team, because there are certain types will work better with other types. At least that's what I found. And depending on the position and where they are, I think it becomes quite important in how you bring them in and what you've asked them to do. And then Chicago, both University of Chicago has a number of different courses, and I had fun attending one of them, and this was high performance leadership, and choosing leadership, and on this scale that you could see, there's only one is true, and everything else is not. And I'd love for you to look at this. For example, do all leaders have charisma? Do all leaders have all the answers? If you can't lead, you're not a leader. You can clearly spot a leader, and leaders are extroverts, and leaders don't make mistakes, and leaders are the ones that are born to be leaders. This is quite interesting in many ways, because you'll be actually surprised when you ask folks on your team, if you give them some of these questions, you'd be surprised what kind of answers you would get. So
what are the answers?
There's only one of them here that is actually true.
What's that?
And the only one is actually top right. If it's not written, it doesn't exist.
Exactly right.
And I found this so many times. And actually, I think, our team and folks at ASH, I think they're tired of hearing me all the time, because we all talk about great ideas within, let's say, StellaLife, and I would always say, let's write it down, because if we can't, you could always try to verbalize something, but if you can't write it down, it's not going to work. So if it's not written, it doesn't exist, and found it always to be true. And then, of course, Steve Jobs. I mean, he's been a figurehead for leadership, and a lot of business schools talk about him. And I find a lot of these are actually extremely useful, these 12 rules of success. The couple that I truly, and they're all actually very good. I think the one that I'm really most aligned with is do what you love. If you're passionate about what you do and you love what you do, it's not a job. If it's not a job, you don't mind doing it. If you don't mind doing it, you're going to spend extra time. If you're going to spend extra time, you are by far more likely to get really good at it. Once you get really good at it, you will enjoy it more, and you will, from a growth perspective, get there faster. So I've always, if young kids who are graduating from colleges or going to college and trying to decide what they want to do, they ask me the question. I always say, it's truly find your passion and just go after something you love to do. And all others are also quite important, like SWOT analysis, be different, be entrepreneurial, be innovative, focus on outcome. Those are all quite important. And then the other books that are really useful, help them grow, watch them go. That's a really good book. And then Talent War, and the new 1 Minute Manager. I think there's a lot of insights from these books. I think in summary, I think it is essential for you to identify your high potential or high potentials in your business and give them a career path. And if you could do that and take care of them and allow them to grow, your business is going to do extremely well, because those high potentials will help you take your business to the next level. This organization actually does a really good job in helping identify mission, vision, values for your team. So they ask all the right questions. They also have some really cool stuff on their website, like you could do a test of emotional intelligence and resilience, and see how resilient you are by actually just going in and answering some of the questions. Of course, Dale Carnegie, we talked a little bit about it. If you go to dalecarnegie.com and resources, you could find so many ebooks, white papers, and some of the training that's actually complementary, like assessment on communicating with diplomacy. So if you have a front desk person who is constantly interacting with your patients, and then you also have hygienist and number of others that are constantly working with your patients, it would be really cool for you just to go to this website and have them take this assessment of communicating with diplomacy, or they actually allow you to download it and you can actually have your team take it. It will allow you to understand how they communicate with your customers, and also allow you to understand if they're in the right role or if they need additional training to communicate with your customers, so that your customers are fully delighted, completely delighted, and always want to come back to your practice. And then ideas, which is basically your product or service, has been identified as number 3. Innovator's Dilemma, it's Clayton Christensen, the one that wrote the book, How Will You Measure Your Life? This is his high-tech Bible. He talks about why medium to large successful companies over time fail, and why small companies and even startups overtake the large companies. And he kind of goes through an explanation why it happens. So as a small business, you have an opportunity to grow into mid-sized business if you decide to add additional practices, become group practice, and someday a DSO. While this is more focused on high tech, there's a lot of lessons learned here that are very, very attributable to any business for its growth and success long term. And then he also talks about the innovator's DNA. The other part that's also important is, do you have currently, are all the ideas coming from only you, or potentially your associate, or one other person on your team? And if that's the case, then that's not that great, because you want to make sure that ideas can come from anyone within the organization. And how you do that is you create an environment where ideas are celebrated, no matter how crazy they are, because crazy ideas will usually lead to some really good ideas down the road. And create discovery sessions with the team, reward those who are willing to speak up, then create an ideation process with your team, and you'll be surprised that if you empower them, how many new great ideas will come. And it could be small ideas on how to do things better, and now they're engaged. And if they bring that idea and they drive that idea to success, now imagine you have somebody that's completely bought in and so excited about being part of your practice and helping you grow. There's various ways in how you can increase your profitability in your practice. Dr. Whit Wilkerson shares the ideas and how he utilizes the products and specific services to increase profitability in his practice. and he's part of Dawson Academy and also taught at AIOSH, and really talks a lot about how you could partner with different companies and utilize their services to improve lives, save lives, and at the same time, truly drive your profitability. And then business model, this one is becomes a little bit more complicated when you go from one practice to two, and then from 2 to 4, and then 4 to 7, and then 7 to 10. It gets a little bit more complicated because now you have to be thinking how to scale your business. And as you think about how do you scale your business, you have to start thinking about how every one, no matter which locations there are, that they're fully aligned. So this is where the core values, core focus, targets, marketing strategy, 3-year plan, 1-year plan, quarterly reviews, and specific actions that are done across the entire organization, and everyone has to communicate. So it becomes a very critical aspect for scaling the business, especially when you go from 1 to 2, but from 2 plus, it becomes very, very critical. This is one of the better books that I could recommend. If you go to eosworldwide.com, you can actually, they have a lot of interesting information, a lot of interesting tools that you could actually learn on these 6 business fundamentals, which is develop and communicate your strong vision, and then get a pulse on your business, have a scorecard, which I call KPIs, and then synthesize how to do things, which means, and then you could make sure that it's done in a systemic way so that everything that's happening is fully aligned across the organization, and then bring vision to life, and then make sure that there's a full collaboration in the environment for success. And then the final essential element is funding. There are all types of different ways to get funds, from bootstrapping, family and friends, loans, crowdfunding, angel investors, of course, private equity, and partners, and various other ways to create funds. And in the past number of years, getting funding has not been super difficult. It is changing. So making sure that you have enough cash to do what you need to do for the next 3 to 5 years is quite important. And then 20 ways to increase profitability and come up with industry best practices to meet those key performance indicators. Knowing your numbers is essential. Like those of you who like to watch Shark Tank, you see Cuban or Mr. Wonderful when they ask the questions about share your numbers, and if you're not sure what your numbers are, they won't invest in the company, even if it's sounds like terrific product. I mean, they'll be kind of worried because you know, as your job as a CEO or a founder is to know your numbers, and then but which numbers to know, that becomes essential. So you have to understand what is driving your business, and then make sure that you identify those key performance indicators, and then understand how to measure them, and then be able to systemically set up for all your practices or all your locations, because that becomes essential. Increased case acceptance is one of those KPIs. I think opportunity for integrating dentistry and medicine. There's, I believe there's a competitive advantage when you start working with physicians and they start channeling you their referrals, and you do vice versa. All of a sudden, your input of patients could significantly grow. We talked about various diagnostics, creating or introducing new services and new products. Also improve patients' outcome and experience, and recruit, train, nurture your passionate team, those who have good vibe, and those who are truly interested in helping you grow the business, that they feel it's part of their own personal growth as well. And then add new capabilities, like we've seen sleep apnea is growing significantly. That's one example of many. And then align rewards with your practice objectives. So, and I've seen this not only in the dental field or medicine, but also I've seen it even in high tech, where the company's mission, vision, and values, they're focused on this, and then their rewards are completely in a different area. And that's not going to help drive the KPIs, because in the contrary, everyone says we're doing this, but then you get paid and recognized for this, and you're sending mixed messages, and they're not going to go in that direction. So even though it's here number 9, I think it's probably should be number 2, because that's just how important that is. And just do identify your high potentials, have a path for them, because they could truly help you drive business to profit successfully, or continue to increase your profit. AI has been a lot in the news. It's interesting. I've been sharing this this presentation for the past, I think, 4 years. And then AI, I think, is a big part, but it's kind of interesting that it's now becoming more and more talked about. I think 3D printing, we know ChatGPT, many others are going to be a key driver. I think staying on top of it and learning how it could give you competitive advantage, I think, is going to be important. So always try to find somebody who's strong in technology so that they could become your advisors. I think that would be a very strong recommendation from me. And then increase your capacity by 80 hours, turn unscheduled visits into long-term customers, continue to increase your ROI, getting your new patients with correct marketing, and also enable same-day treatment. If they're walking in, if you could do that, that will help you bring a lot of new customers, convert calls into visits, provide terrific customer care where they love you, and then make sure you have insurance and payment terms for them, for those who need it. And this is some of the KPIs that I share. And as we conclude here, these are some that are recommended. Again, I have not ran practice myself. So what I'm sharing here is my both research and talking to a lot of different clinicians, both in medical and dentistry, and they're sharing with me the type of KPIs they're focused on, and also even DSOs, because they're all driven by key performance indicators. I mean, they watch this stuff. If we include DSOs, then we start getting into financials, EBITDA, all this other stuff that they
Particularly
watch.
if you're getting into DSOs, just interrupt. I mean, we've got to understand that the DSOs are providing the business models that we may not, as individual practitioners, be willing to do. And so that more and more practices are going in the direction of DSO because they're doing these performance indicators. However, these performance indicators are easily derived from your software. I mean, it's already there. It's just a matter of getting those benchmarks there, understanding where they are, make sure you're on top of it every week, every month, and not wait until the end of the year to let your accountant know what's going on. And if you're able to look at these benchmarks, and every one of these benchmarks here are important. I mean, treatment acceptance obviously is a big deal. And if our treatment acceptance is down for 1 month, well, we have to find out what happened. You know, what happened? What did we do wrong? What did the financial arrangements system do wrong? If we know that now in the month, well, we're recording this in the month of May of 2023. If we know that now, we can make the correction in June rather than find out at the end of the year what happened. So one of the keys to maintaining an independent practice, which is what the IDS is geared to, is to make sure that we're running a business model that's going to measure our successes, and then we can apply all of these important ideas, including high tech, and making sure that it's high touch, and that we're providing something that's better than anybody else can provide in your area. That's what's going to set you apart. That's what's going to differentiate you, and that's why people are going to choose you rather than choose those that are providing lesser services, if you will.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's so well said. And numbers don't lie. You'd be so surprised that sometimes we have a certain picture of how our business is running, and then you start getting into KPIs, and you go like, oh, really? You look at the numbers and you say that there must be something wrong, because I expect it to be this. And then you go research more and you look at the numbers more and you go, oh, okay, so we need to start paying attention to this. That's why numbers, and if it's not written, doesn't exist. And having these numbers, and I totally agree, Lee. One of the things that we do is, and this is something again I've learned through the Motorola days, and whether you're a large business or a small business, you look at your KPIs, you develop the list, you start with what matters to you most. You don't need to start with everything. You start with what you can do that you're familiar with, and then just continue to grow it, and then continue to monitor and make sure that you're monitoring correctly, because that's even more important. Rather than monitor all 12, if you could monitor 5 really well, start with that, the ones that are important for your business, and then over time grow. The other part that I would just add to it, it's really hard, but if you could start thinking, instead of 1-year terms, 3 years, it's called 3-year LRP, which is the corporations do what's called 3-year, which is a long range plan. That's what LRP stands for. So it's difficult because you have to start with 1 year, but you could start kind of like planting seeds and saying, in 3 years, I think we could be here. And as you start evolving your organization and your thinking and your team, it will actually help you, because not only you're looking at this snapshot, but you're going to start looking and saying, okay, in 3 years, we want to be here. And then you start thinking of how we're going to get there. So there is really the other thing, just to finalize, is on the marketing side, there's various pillars that you need. These are not all encompassing, but this is, everyone knows email is important. Internet marketing is important, mobile, video, and social media. And there's
Don't forget snail mail.
Yep. Actually, it is in one of these somewhere. I just don't remember where, but it's a long list.
Yeah.
And maybe, Lee, we could provide it to your audience if they're interested in seeing this, because there's some nuggets in here. Like, for example, when I share this, some people kind of say, I had no idea there was these dental and medical directories, and I didn't know how I can get on them. Well, reality is, when a lot of your patients are looking for a dentist in their area, or periodontist, if they even know who periodontists are, then they would actually be searching for some of the directories. So this is one example. And one other thing that I would leave is that most people think that TV commercials is extremely expensive. And it's actually, if you hit your local channel and if you do it in the right way, you can end up being a matter expert because they've seen you on TV. I mean, it's that crazy. And I've known a number of clinicians who've actually done this extremely well, and they become celebrity just because they're running on certain channel their commercials. And those commercials could be the 30-second commercial, and in some cases they would do like an infomercial of about 15 to 20 minutes and talk about periodontal disease and other things that allow folks to really understand what's important, why it's important, why they need to see their periodontist or their dentist. So with that, and then there's pay-per-click, and then there's Facebook and Instagram and many others. Just mentioning that we, for example, work with Now Media Group, and they've done a really good job. If you are looking for someone, what I like about these guys is that they will actually give you a free performance review on your website, on your SEO, on everything, on your content marketing. They would just do like a 360, and they'll give you like a 20-page report, completely free. And if you decide not to use them, you don't, that's totally fine. But they will at least tell you what needs to be fixed where. And I think they've done a pretty good job for us. And then the final thing is, I get constantly asked, what is Pastel? And how do I add resiliency to my business? Pastel really stands for political, economic, social, technological, legal, environmental scan. And what it is that it allows you to look at outside things that are going on, not within the company. This is your company. This is your practice or your multiple practices. But there are things that are going to be happening outside your practice. Everything right now we discussed was about your practice and everything you're doing inside. Why is it important to monitor what's going on outside? Well, if there is a recession coming, you need to be thinking about it and need to understand how that impacts your business. If there's something going on a social side, you need to understand. Technological, I think AI by itself, everyone talks about it. So how's AI gonna change practices? Anything that's going on the political or environmental side or legal side, is there a new ruling that's coming out that could be impacting how you practice? That's quite essential and important. Each industrial revolution and the technology is happening now so fast that the point was that it took about 100 years between the first and the second, and then it only took less than half the time to get to the third, and then the fourth is really coming right at us. So what I think is exciting about it is truly embracing technology and understanding how it impacts the business. These are a number of books that I recommend, and and also some TED Talks. But I think each one of them offers some really unique insights and a lot of different things that we discussed. I want to thank you for the time, and if there is any questions, I can answer any questions. But I appreciate spending the time with you, and I hope you found and your audience found this useful.
That was great, Gennady. Appreciate it. You want to go on full screen and we can talk?
Yes.
Good. I mean, this is inspirational. And for anybody who's looking at this, I think the first question I would have is, there was so much information here. Let's assume that you're a budding young practitioner. What's the first book you would read?
That's a fantastic question. So I would definitely look at the essential elements. I think that's a really important factor. And then there are a number of books that are there. But I would probably go with Dale Carnegie, because I truly, between Dale Carnegie and Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, I think those are just fundamentals that if you're starting early in your career, you set the right fundamentals for your practice. That's where I would go. And then later start figuring out what your vision, your mission, values are, so that you could actually rally up the team, because you'll get there faster, by far faster, if you could get that done well.
It's good. You know, you mentioned the fact that it's important that you take your high performers and give them a future, make sure that they have a future, and reward them for this, so that in fact they can make a career out of your practice. I can only give an example, a personal example, and I'll give it to you because many of you know her, including you, Gennady. You know Danielle. Now, Danielle started with me as a surgical assistant. She'd been an orthodontic assistant someplace else, and then she came to me. And there are certain things that you see in an individual. You say, well, how can I reward her? And so she moved from surgical assistant eventually to part-time office manager, then full-time office manager. But still, she has a family and she's capable of so much more. Danielle had been, and I only found this out after the fact, had been considering going to nursing school in order to be able to be more valuable and actually provide a better living for her family. So, of course, promotion to office manager, and then increasing the size of the practice, that increases the amount of money that she gets paid. But still, you take that individual and you see what else she can do. And so now she's co-director with me of the IDS, and that's more income for her and harnesses her responsibilities. So the question is, you don't have to become consultants like we are. That isn't the idea, or start an organization. But the idea is, what can you do in order to be able to take that valuable person and not only reward her financially, because that's not the whole thing, as Gennady said, but to allow her to grow and allow her to see that she can reach an additional potential with you. It could be with contacts that you have in industry, so that you can provide for that key person's growth that way. It's just a matter of using your imagination and always thinking big. Don't think small, think big. Think beyond where you are. Notice Gennady was talking about, look at a 3-year plan. How about a 5-year plan? How about a 10-year plan? China looks in terms of 100-year plans. Okay, so understand that we are moving in a direction. And for those of us who want to stay in independent practice, or even want to grow our practices into multiple offices or multiple specialty offices, there is that target you need to go to, playing a bigger game and be able to determine the plans that you need to make in order to be able to play that bigger game. Understanding the key performance metrics, which is what Gennady spent a reasonable amount of time on today, is the way to be able to track your business. That's what you need. That's essential. But in order to be able to look farther, look beyond that, you need to look at other examples of people in your own community, or even look at Gennady and look where Gennady was and how he became who he is now, in order to be able to see that there is a much bigger game you can play. And I know you're saying, oh, I've got all these problems here with my practice and these patients, but nah, just play a bigger game. That's a Hubbard quote. Play a bigger game, or at least a paraphrase. Play a bigger game, and all of these problems have their own perspective. They're minor by comparison with what you can do, not just for yourself, but really for society. That's the whole idea.
Very good.
I want to cover one other subject, because people are always looking to grow their practices. And you're the vice president of AOSH, and you're involved with Whit Wilkinson's group as well, IDM Scholar Society. It takes a certain physician who wants to work with dentists. This isn't the everyday physician. And so Gennady, within AOSH, which is a great organization, how do you suggest that people develop relationships with physicians, and how do you choose those physicians?
Actually, it's an excellent question. And I've now met a number of both physicians and dentists and periodontists that actually form these relationships. They have a lot more insight than I do, but they share one common element is they all join AOSH first. At AOSH, they learn about oral systemic health, and then they meet like-minded both dentists and physicians, even though they could be thousands of miles away, and they get a chance to ask these type of questions. And whether it's Dr. Susan Maples or Dr. Susan Estep or Dr. Ellie Campbell, who's a physician, or Dr. Alan Reisinger, they're all have their stories and how they've successfully done this. And it's not an easy feat. It doesn't happen overnight, but over the years, they've actually built those relationships to a point where some of them share with me that more of their referrals are now coming from physicians than actually dentists. So that tells you something. I mean, that's just, when I heard that, I was like, oh, and then by the way, you're not just saving smiles, you're actually saving lives. So, and some of these physicians would not go do surgeries until they get a clearance from a dental professionals that their perio is okay and their gums are not bleeding and all this other stuff that's going on.
And they're looking at sleep apnea too, and they want
and sleep apnea. I mean, exactly. And the list goes on. Yeah, exactly. So there's a huge opportunity to truly transform in how medical and dental professionals work together. This is not an overnight, this is a long journey. But the fact that this journey has begun, and the fact that an example like a large DSO like Pacific Dental, who's now investing into millions and millions into medical and dental practices that are integrated. I think they now have like 5 around the country. And there's other smaller group practices that are beginning to really focus on this area. And there's a software called APEC that actually can integrate medical and dental records. And that Pacific Dental was one of the key drivers. And now they're looking into insurance and other things. So someday this will become mainstream. But as I shared, I'm always on the bleeding edge of new innovation. And I believe that this is so essential and critical for improving and saving lives that the more we do it, the financial part will definitely be there. Because if now the big guys are focused on it, you know that there will be profits coming.
Tell me about that software, APEC. How do you spell that?
I think it's APEC. I will send you that information. I think it's APEC, I think, but I can provide you that information.
By the time this is edited, it will be at the bottom of the screen right now, so it'll be okay.
All right, good.
Gennady, what an outstanding talk. Thanks for providing that for us. And by the way, how do people reach you?
Very simple. gsirota@StellaLife.com, or they can call me at 847-275-6753. That's my mobile. They can also reach out to me via LinkedIn or any other social media, but mainly LinkedIn. So, but I'm available if there's any questions, and I do enjoy sharing this with a lot of folks. And now that I've done this for about a dozen of universities, specifically in perio programs, and I get invited back, I feel like there is some value to be added and to fantastic profession that you guys have and improving and saving lives. So thank you for bringing all great information to your audience, and thank you for all the clinicians who are improving, saving lives every day. We really appreciate all of you guys.
Exactly right. And by the way, if you have not tried StellaLife in conjunction with surgical procedures you're doing, it's not like any other rinse. I've been using rinses for my entire career. StellaLife is what we've been using now ever since the company. We must have started within the first year that you started the company, Gennady, is that right?
The company was started in 2014. We launched in 2016. So yes, and you were one of our, we call you an innovator. You're an innovator who understood the value before we had all the university studies, and which now we have.
And we've stayed with the product. We still prescribe it as part of our post-surgical routine. We've also used it for erosive lichen planus, fantastic case that we did with erosive lichen planus. This will make your patients heal faster and be much more comfortable. So if you haven't tried the product, contact StellaLife. I think you're going to find that it makes a big, big difference for you and for your patients. Gennady Sirota, always great to see you. Gennady and I see each other, what, once or twice a year anyway, and I always look forward to seeing you. Thanks for providing this great information for all of us.
I'm honored to be here, and I hope to see you next at AAP.
Very good. Thanks. Oh, no, I'll see you at AOS before AAP.
That's right. At
That's right.
Collaboration Cures in Orlando in September. That's awesome.
Absolutely. Good night.
Looking forward to seeing you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye-bye.